On today's program, we'll discuss ways elementary and high school principals can more effectively do their job. We'll look at life and the law in Israel, and there'll be a tour of Bracken Library at Ball State University. All too often, school principals are bogged down with making mundane, non-educational decisions such as grass cutting, boiler repair, etc. Dr. Thelbert Drake, Ball State professor of educational administration and supervision, has written a book, The Principalship, that will help school principals focus on what their job really is. Dr. Drake, your recent book, The Principalship, carries what message?
The message that the book carries really is that the principal is one of the most important roles in schools today, and that the principal can make a big difference in terms of improving what happens in the school as far as the learning of the kids.
Don't they become a lot in decision-making that does not involve education? Per se, administrative things like leaky boilers and lawn cutting.
Or school buses or whatever it might be. That's right. Accounting for the lunch money sometimes can take an inordinate amount of time. But as far as I'm concerned, the main role of the principal is to really improve what happens in that school between teachers and kids and how much those kids are learning. And it's unfortunate that the principal is really often given rewards for doing a lot of the small things very well, and goodness knows they need to be done. But we don't really focus on how much the kids really are learning. That is, the role of the principalship, I think, should be to be held responsible for the quality of education in that building.
He should be closely supervising the teachers.
That's right, absolutely.
In what ways specifically can principals do a better job?
Well, in the effective schools research that we've been reading the last few years, the principal can really articulate what the school is all about. He can articulate the standards. He can say what is good. And the principal also can monitor what it is that the school is accomplishing. Continuously monitoring achievement is one of the behaviors that seems to make a difference as to whether or not the school is really achieving. So that is one thing that the principal can do.
And what are some of the others?
Some of the other things would include really freeing his or her own time to get into those classrooms, work with teachers, help them with the problems they have, know those pupils in that school, work with the faculty and department heads or however the school may be organized in such a way that the whole emphasis on the school is on education.
In freeing up time, isn't it easier said than done?
Much easier said than done, that's right. You see, the superintendent's office, I'm sure, expects them to get their reports in on time. The parents would, and rightly so, demand a great deal of time. Emergencies here, there, and elsewhere will demand a great deal of time. So the principal is really caught between a rock and a hard place in that during the day all of these things are just happening continuously, and many times the principal just has to stop all of those things as far as directly accessing the principal and say, I'm going to be in the classroom. And many principals are now beginning to do that.
Is it possible to say set aside 10 to 12, 8 to 9, or whatever, 8 to 12, and say no decisions other than educational decisions and observation?
Some principals are now being able to do that. We really don't staff our schools to allow the principal to do that kind of thing. I can recall when I was a principal, there were 650 kids, 24 faculty in the classroom, 3 special teachers, the cafeteria staff, and the only person there really to, quotes, run the building was me, and I had a secretary. We aren't really staffed to get that job done. I'm sure if you were to check out the staffing arrangements or the span of control or whatever you would like to call it, with a McDonald's or a Kmart or something like that, you would not find 600 employees out here with 24 supervisors and one person. You wouldn't have that kind of ratio, and yet that's kind of what they expect in the schools. And you may have noticed that I said 600 employees, and the whole idea is if the product of a school, like the product of a plant, is what the kids learn, then really the kids are the workers. And we just don't staff schools the way that business and industry are staffed in order to get that job done.
How does the Indiana Principal Center and Network work? That's conducted by Ball State University and Indiana State University.
That's right. The Indiana Principal Center and Network is it's a grassroots organization. We're a very poor organization in that we live by our very small membership fees. The whole idea of the Principals Center and Network is that principals can really help principals, and they really want to do a good job, particularly in this area of instructional improvement. An example of that is that we had a workshop just recently in Fort Wayne. Over 50 principals were there. The whole idea was 3 or 4 principals who had been very successful in improving instruction decided that they could put on a very good workshop for their colleagues. They did, and it was just well accepted. Lots of people went away and said, we want more of this kind of thing. So it's kind of a shift with this grassroots kind of operation. And the Principal Center really is spread out all over the state, and like you mentioned, Indiana State is involved also. They work with principals on that side of the state. We all come together in Indianapolis occasionally, and it's just working out very well. It's been in existence now about a year.
Are superintendents and school boards receptive to principals delegating the more mundane day-to-day problems and getting back to the educational problems?
They seem to be receptive to the idea. Nowhere along the line are the principals going to be freed from the responsibility to see that everything is done properly, but they aren't really staffing the schools in such a way or giving the principals a responsibility to staff it themselves so that they can get that job done. So I think it's going to be a learning process for boards and superintendents as well.
But something that needs to be done.
Something that needs to be done.
Dr. Edna Kaplan, a criminal defense lawyer from Israel, was on the Ball State University campus to talk to students in criminal justice, religious programs, and history about the life and crime in Israel, including terrorism. Dr. Kaplan, as a criminal attorney in Tel Aviv, do you deal with the same type of cases we have in the United States?
I think that yes, on the large scale, yes, it's murder. Though we don't have your first degree, second degree, and third degree, we have just murder without diminished responsibility as it is in England, and we have manslaughter. We have armed robberies and all the rest which you have too, but we differ from you with the punishment system. I don't think it's that severe as it could be in the United States.
You do have capital punishment?
We do have, yes, in 3 cases. One of them is crimes against humanism, crimes of treason in war times, and terrorism in military court.
Do you have the depth of the drug problem in Israel that we have in this country?
Well, I wouldn't want to be not honest and to go into conclusions which I don't know, but we have drugs problem in Israel. I don't know if that's severe as in the United States, but we had, let's say, one time that we had 4 kilos of heroin being smuggled to Israel, which is a lot. And it was smuggled from Turkey. Once we had something transported from Thailand, sometimes from Amsterdam. We don't have cocaine so much as you have it here. The other day I've heard that somebody was caught with cocaine. And there is a severe punishment for drugs, smuggling and drugs. Recently somebody got 15 years imprisonment, which is tough, I think.
Your country has dealt with terrorism since its founding in 1948. It's been a part,
That's
really,
true.
of your heritage.
Yeah.
And you have some very effective methods of dealing with terrorists, both within and without. I don't imagine you have as many within as without, but you do have some within. And our country is just beginning to deal with this problem. What is your advice on dealing with terrorists?
Be tough with them. As I said before to some other people who were asking me the same question, you say in United States you have to have two for a tango, and it's not a gentleman to be with whom to be a gentleman. You have to be tough with people like Gaddafi, for example, because he's nuts, and let you not forget that nuts can be also very dangerous. And I mean, they have to get fair trial, but they have to be persecuted wherever they are, and you have to show really strong hand against them, as you do.
But
and I hope you'll do.
And I think that would be the case, that we would deal harshly with them. But they are so elusive, and it is so difficult to pinpoint the blame. Now, West Germany, the West German government said that they do believe the bombing may have originated from the Libyan embassy.
Yes, I've heard so, yes.
Yes. But there is not conclusive proof at this point. What do you think of the international implications of a military strike against Libya? And what form should it take? Israel has taken.
Yes, they have bombed already outside Israel when they thought it was the right to do so. If people hurt us, we can really retaliate in punishing them, even if it's not in Israel itself.
Do you think this has deterred terrorism?
I hope it did. It can't break it, but I think that if you show that you are not soft with them, they really will reconsider what will be the consequences for them to redo these things again. I think so, because you always take it in account what you are going to get if you'll do that and that.
I think the
so.
most recent case concerning your country was the terrible deaths of the Israeli people in Cyprus on the yacht.
Yeah, in Larnaca. Yeah, yeah.
And there was retaliation for the deaths of those
there was.
three.
It won't stop terrorism. Unfortunately, it won't stop terrorism. But you have to go on living with it, as we live in our country. We don't ignore it. We ignore it in a way that we continue living as if it doesn't exist, and we continue fighting as if it exists all the time with terrorism. And I'm sure that only now, I think, internationally, it will be recognized that all nations have to be together and fight it really hard in order to beat terrorism wherever it is. And as one of your leaders said, there is no time for amateurs. There should be real professionals doing it all over the world, fighting them back. Because it reached such stages that never before it has been. With the TWA, it was terrible. And the other time when you had another TWA and you had your ways of dealing with it, I think you did fine, and you will do fine again.
Your point is that we should make it too costly for them to perpetrate acts of terrorism.
I think so. Otherwise, they'll say, "Who cares? Who cares? We can do that again, and nobody will punish us." Because some nation will say, "Well, it's not our business; it's more the American business," and then another one will say, "No, it's their business." So if they'll fight among themselves, who is going to punish it? Nobody will get punished, and they'll get away with it.
What do you think of the reports of the French and Italian deals with Gaddafi in the 70s? If he wouldn't terrorize French or Italian citizens, and they would allow him to operate within their countries.
Well, that's part of politics.
But it doesn't work. Apparently it didn't work for the French.
No.
Or the Italians.
No.
Dealing with other problems within your country, for example, we've discussed drugs, which is a mutual problem in yours, perhaps not as extensive as Israel as here. You have your juvenile delinquency problems. We're having moral problems with our young people. We have current campaigns against children, molestation, and so forth. Do you have these problems to any extent in Israel?
No, not really.
That's
we
not-
don't have children molestation, no. I can't say that. That for sure I can't, I say definitely no.
That's a real problem in this country.
Yes, I've heard, even so in the big supermarkets, pictures of children whom they say, have you seen that and that
Oh, yes.
child?
We have them
it
on
really
milk cartons and-
terrified me to see this thing.
Thousands of children disappear every year.
I've heard about it, and this is really terrible to see it. I've watched it with terror.
Do you have juvenile delinquency to any extent in your country?
Well, I think we have, but not, and we always are worried about our youngs, as every country is. But I can say that I think that it doesn't reach these extremes which are to be that worried compared to the other things which sometimes are worrying you in a society.
Can you speak for the average Israeli citizen as to their feelings concerning the wars that continue in the Middle East? The Lebanese civil war, the Syrian aggression against your country, and the Iranian aggression against Iraq. How do you feel about this constant conflict, many of it on the peripheral edges of your border?
It's a hot country, and it will continue to be so. And unfortunately, I was born in 42, and since 48, there were constant wars in Israel. And we live in it, and my daughter serves now in the military force of Israel. When I was in the military force, I hoped that one day my daughter won't have to be in a military force. Unfortunately, it turns out that we'll have, perhaps even my granddaughter, if I live to that, will have to go to the military force. But it's better that way. It's better to be strong and to protect our dear country and show that we will live there, hopefully, God's willing, forever.
Do you feel that with United States help that eventually there will be peace in the Middle East within your generation or the next generation?
Our prayer and hope, and my prayer and hope, is yes. I hope so very much. We came to peace with Egypt, and she was the first to do it. We never dreamt about it, and Sadat was a very great man to do that. And we really hope that the other people, the Syrians, the Jordanians, will be able to say that they would like to sit with us near a table and to really recognize our right to our state and have a land of our own as a nation of Israel.
One final question. Do you have equal opportunity for women in Israel?
Oh, yes. Yes. Of that I'm very proud. As I've said to this beautiful class before, we have our vice president of the Supreme Court is a lady, and she's very bright. And
Does she
she's
get the
beautiful.
same salary as the male members?
Of course she does. Why shouldn't she? And we have 3 now lady judges at the Supreme Court, and our whole Supreme Court consists of 11 judges. And they're not they're not nominated because they are ladies, but because they are very good.
Because you had one of the greatest women leaders of all
Of
time,
course,
Golda Meir.
Golda Meir, yes. She
Yes.
was the toughest of toughest. Yes. Yes, she was a great woman.
Bracken Library at Ball State University is celebrating 10 years in its present location. Michael Wood, Dean of Libraries, takes us on a tour of the library showing its extensive resources. Dean Wood, as we get into the 10th anniversary of Bracken Library, do you anticipate an expansion of services or a growth in, say, the next 10 years?
We anticipate in the university libraries bringing on an automation of the services that we already offer in terms of circulation and in terms of the card catalog, in terms of automating our acquisition systems and various other areas inside the library. We don't anticipate at this time an expansion of the physical facilities. However, for those who have been in the library recently, you may notice that we are refurbishing what we already have. We're getting in some new carpeting, we're revising our security system, and we're getting in some new chairs during this year.
Actually, Bracken Library is not the only library on campus. We have several that come under your direction.
That's true. In addition to the main facility here, Bracken Library, we have two other libraries, one in Cooper Science Building, which is the Health Science Library, as well as one in the Architecture Building, each of which serve selected faculties here on campus.
How many students use the facilities here at Bracken?
In any given year, for example, last year we had over 1 million students and faculty who visited the library. In terms of circulating materials, on a formal basis, there were about 500,000 circulations here at the circulation counter. Our in-house use of people who used materials that we reshelved was of a like number. We had 500,000 things that were not circulated but which we reshelved.
Let's take a closer look at some of the facilities.
Delighted.
Dean Wood, this card catalog and reference area appears to be one of the busiest in the library.
Indeed it is. This is the heart of the library. This is where people obtain access to all of the materials within the library. We have, as I've indicated, over 1.2 million volumes inside the library, and the card catalog provides well over 6 million access points. It is the place to which people come in order to find out what it is that we have.
And our reference is certainly...
Our reference area is located quite near the card catalog. It is also an extremely busy area of the library. Last year we handled over 68,000 reference transactions down there, which averages out to about 1 every 3 minutes that we're open. In addition to those materials which are accessed through the card catalog, we maintain an interlibrary loan service. We're very proud of the fact that we are a net lender, meaning that we lend more than we have to borrow. Last year we ran about 12,000 transactions here.
And your contacts are with whom?
We are connected by way of the terminals that you can see in the background to over 2,000 institutions in the United States, among them the most prestigious academic libraries.
Such as Yale and Harvard?
Such as Yale, Harvard, MIT, the California System, New York Public. We can get materials from just about any location and any source within the nation.
And how long does it usually take?
That depends on the status of the materials at a responding library. Usually we can get something in 7 to 10 days.
This is special collections on the second floor.
Exactly. This is one of the areas that we are particularly proud of. It is here that we keep a variety of items which are attractive and good by virtue of their rarity. What we have before us right now is a leaf from the Gutenberg Bible. It was donated along with many of the other materials that you see in this display by Elizabeth Ball. The contents of our display, the contents of this collection have been given to us by the Ball Foundation. We have other special collections in our special collections, among them the Steinbeck collection, the Stokel Delaware County Archives, and a variety of other sources which have particular interest for people in and around Muncie.
How often do you change the exhibit in the special collections room?
We try to change the collection at least once a quarter. Sometimes, depending upon the level of activity, we may have as many as 2 or 3 different displays in this area in any given quarter. In addition to the scholarly materials and aesthetic materials that we maintain in special collections, this area also functions as the archive of the university. We maintain memorabilia and documents from Ball State University. As you can see, President Worthen's portrait hangs here, along with all of the presidents of the university. He began our decennial year by bringing his mace and medallion over for deposit, and that is how our year commenced, and we're very proud of his support and encouragement of the university libraries.
And you have presidential portraits from the very first, President Kumar.
From the very first on down to the current president.
The map room is a very important part of the library, and I understand that we have one of the finest collections in the country.
Indeed, it is one of the best collections in the country. We have over 100,000 maps here. We function as a depository for the U.S. Geological Survey and the Defense Mapping Agency. Our map librarian has been selected numerous times to participate in Washington, D.C. in the Library of Congress's map program. We're extremely proud of this,
map area. Students and faculty and citizens use it not only for scholarly purposes, but for recreational purposes. So we're quite proud of it. And serving as a depository strengthens our collection. Right across the way from the map area is the government publications area. We're also a depository for federal and state publications, government documents. That area, coincidentally with our 10th year celebration here in Bracken, is celebrating its 25th anniversary as a government depository. So there is a lot going on in the library, a lot about which we are proud. And this area is one of yet many areas in which we take extreme pride. This is our music listening area. It is a service that we provide to the School of Music within the College of Fine Arts. What you're looking at now is an analog computer that controls the tape decks that you see behind. We have well over 2,000 offerings, everything from pop through classical to experimental music that individuals may come and listen to here. Within the area itself, we have 39 carols, some of which are controlled by the people who are using the carols themselves. We use this for music appreciation, music history, a variety of other activities. Beyond the room itself, we have over 100 carols which are wired for sound, so individuals may come and they may listen to whatever kind of music they like as they study here in the library. Within the Music Listening Center itself, we have about 39 carols, some of which offer complete control. Students use these carols to complete music assignments with music history, music appreciation, various composition courses. Outside the area itself, we have over 100 carols which are wired for sound and which may be used by students as they use our materials here in the library to conduct their studies.
Dean Wood, we're in the educational resources area and we see quite an exhibit. What does this serve? What is the function of the educational resources area?
Educational resources area was originally intended to provide those materials that we would expect that students would use in developing teaching. What you see here is an exhibit of teaching aids that is used in the classroom. Educational resources also has films, videotapes, slides. We collect curricular materials, curricular guides, textbooks throughout the state. This is one of our most heavily used areas, and it has the widest variety in terms of format of materials that we have in the library.
We've been on almost every floor of the library as we've taken the tour with you and have seen some remarkable facilities. Are they available to just the Ball State community or are they available to the public?
They are available to the public. Any citizen and resident of the state of Indiana is welcome to come and use our materials in-house. Those with proper identification, such as a driver's license, may stop at our general circulation desk upstairs and receive a courtesy citizen's card and can circulate some of the materials that we keep in the stacks. So they are welcome to use the facilities.